So, um, would you mind sharing when and where you were born?
1943 in Taiwan.
Okay, and where in Taiwan did you live when you were growing up?
Well, in the central, the only county in with our coastal line that is the Nantou.
Okay, I see. And can you describe the neighborhood that you grew up in?
It's a rural area. Most people are either farmers or manual labor.
Okay, and what did your family do?
My family, my father was a substitute teacher, and then he quit to become essentially a wood picker, picking up the wood and sell it to make a living.
Okay, I see. And who did you live with?
Well, I lived with my parents,
So your mother and your father?
yes,
Did
and
you
brother and sisters,
you had brothers and sisters?
yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about them?
Well, I'm the eldest among all the siblings. So I have, at the time when I was in primary school, I had one brother, two sisters.
And what was your relationship like with your siblings?
In terms of what? And they get along or do not get along?
Right, yeah, exactly.
Oh, I do get along well. Well, particularly I'm the elder. So, so that's typical in the family in Taiwan. The eldest has the most respect. That's normal.
Did you have more responsibilities as the eldest?
Well, yes, as a kid, yes, particularly when my father was put in prison.
Your father was put in prison?
Yeah, he was arrested for political reason when I was in the first grade.
I see. And how did you feel about that at the time?
Well, obviously it was a shock,
Right.
but not much I could do. Well, actually, I didn't know why he was arrested until sometime after.
And if you don't mind me asking, what was the reason?
Well, he was accused in collusion with the communist.
I see. At the time, was that a normal thing to occur?
Well, I would not call that normal. It's abnormal, and many people get arrested. And my father was the only one in my village who was arrested.
I see. Did that have any effects on your family? I mean, I'm sure it did.
Oh yes, because our family doesn't have any uh, property except one house, and we don't have a farm to work with. We don't have a business to make any earning, and so my mother would have to become a migratory laborer. She worked in the farm for other people.
Okay. And what was your relationship like with your mother?
Well, very close.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me put this a little bit back. In when my father was arrested, my youngest sister was about 3 months or maybe 2 months old, and my mother would have to work to support 4 kids, including me. And then my younger sister need to be breastfed, and so I carry her to see her in the farm for breastfeeding. That's my first year of duty. At the time I was in primary school, and very often I had to quit the school in order to take my baby sister to have her breastfed by my mother out working.
I see. So, what was schooling like for you then?
Say that again.
What was going to school like for you in such a situation?
Oh, my teacher allowed me to take the time off in the middle of the class when the time is up for me to pick up my baby sister who was taken care of by my grandmother who stayed with my uncle, one of my uncles.
So, you mentioned your grandmother and your uncle. So, did you spend a lot of time with your extended family as well?
Well, not much. The reason is, well, there's no reason to spend time with them. No particular reason we have to do that. The kid at my time, most kids are very independent.
Most kids were very independent.
In the sense that they play alone by themselves, and there's no safety issue because it's in countryside. There's no crime, and there's no vehicle problem like running into an accident, that kind of stuff. So all the kids just independent. There's no so-called like in nowadays you need to have a child care, and that is nothing. For example, I take care of my younger brother and 2 younger sisters when I'm off the school. And then when I'm not in the school and they are not in the school at that time, they sort of take care of themselves. There's no so-called babysitter to speak of, except my youngest sister. She was a baby, and obviously she need to be taken care of.
Right. So, was it mostly you taking care of her?
Yes.
Okay. So, when you weren't in school and you weren't taking care of her and handling your other responsibilities, did you have any time to do anything else, like spend time with friends?
Well, it's the kids in the countryside play together, and my house happened to have space for kids to come over. When our house, we have a front house that's by the street, so we rent it out for some people to do business, but the business is not very successful, and there's in between, we rent it out, and then the kid would come in to play with us. And then another thing is our house also was used as a temporary storage local farmers, they put their produce in our house until they can ship it out to the town or city. So we have plenty of kids coming to my house.
I see. So, do you have a favorite memory of that time when there were a lot of people coming into your house?
No, it's not a particular memory. It's just every day seems to be as usual. Well, the memory day will be the day when the evening when my father was arrested, and many villagers came to see what happened. That's memorable.
Right.
And then, well, coming back a couple of years later, my eldest sister died, and many people came to visit us too. And then the third event is when my mother, excuse me, I'm a little bit emotional. When my mother was hurt during a construction work, she carried a big load up to a stair, and then the stair collapsed. And my mother went with it, and she became disabled.
I see. How did that impact you at the time?
Yeah, so those are a few events
Right.
that I remember vividly what happened to our family.
So, about how old were you when?
Well, that's between, say, 6 and 12. That's all happened during my primary school years.
I see. I imagine that was quite challenging for you.
Yeah. Well, in retrospect, I even admire my mother more because she would have to do the labor work and to support 4 kids. And eventually, one of my sister died, and that my mother felt that I could not take care of my younger sister. So then my mother asked asked her parents to take care of the younger sister. So my younger sister was staying with my grandmother and grandfather at the other side of a river. And that river, there's no bridge across it. The only time that we could go to visit her would be in the winter time when the water level is low enough and there's a dike built. We can go through the dike to visit my sister. So that was during my primary school years.
So, when all of that was happening, what did an average day look like for you?
Well, average day, I went to school. The school only about 5 to 10 minutes away from my home. And then after the school, during that period of time, I also went out to collect whatever is eatable, particularly the freshwater clam that I have to go to the river to get them and then to support, in a way, our family.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, back in those days in the countryside, there's plenty of small wildlife. For example, the frogs and the lungfish in the farm. So then I can go over there to find the frog. So we eat the frog, we eat the lungfish, and then along the side we can get the clam from the irrigation ditch. That's at that time that besides me, some other people did that too.
So, with these things that you gathered, would you be the one to cook them, or would someone else handle that?
Oh, my mother cooked it.
I see.
Usually, because cooking is not a simple business. First, you have to be able to start the fire.
Right.
And then you use the wood. And so that requires certain skill to do it. And my mother would take care of it. Only occasionally I and my brother would do it. That's not a daily business. It's just occasionally we did it, my brother and I.
Right. Was there a favorite food that you remember from your childhood?
Oh, there's no so-called favorite food. Whatever is on the table, you eat it.
Right.
And then you also need to know that at that time there was no refrigerator and there's no storage for food. So essentially, you put it on the table and then cover with some kind of basket. And then ant and cockroach will claw into it. So that's the type of living condition I have experienced.
So collecting the food that you would eat was something that you would have to take care of every day?
Well, not every day, because those things are not available. It's seasonal. For example, frogs will come only in the spring and summertime. And in the wintertime or in the fall, those are not available. But clam, that's available year-round because they don't just die out, but frog do come in season. And then come in season also we have to fight with a snake. There's a lot of snake. Every day I went out, I encountered some snake. And at the first, I would try to kill them. But later on, I just deal with those snakes. I saw them, they run away. I don't try to kill them. But we do not eat snake.
Right. So, in this countryside that you lived in, how many other people were living there?
Oh, let me tell you about the school size, and then you would have some idea about it.
Yes.
My primary school is the only one among 5 villages. And at my time, we have about 150 students in the same grade. So you multiply that by 6. It's roughly about 800 students in my primary school. And that's how many. And then you can extrapolate that to the village size. There's a different cluster. So you can multiply that, say, by 10 or something like that. Because many girls didn't go to school
Right.
at my time. So the boy and girls ratio was about 2-to-1, 2 boys and 1 girl. And then you consider, the missing, normally it would be about 2-to-2, 1-to-1 ratio, like not 2-to-1. That means many girls didn't go to school in my time.
Right. Did your siblings also go to this school?
Yes, all my siblings go to school. My father had 6 years plus education in primary school, and my mother didn't have any schooling at all.
I see. So at school, what did your classes what did you do at school?
Well, I went to school every day, despite all the problems. So I never absent from school. And my performance in terms of grade, in the first grade, I remember I was 14 out of about 60 or 70 students.
Mm-hmm.
And then move on, my grade moved up and down. And then at the first grade, my performance, according to the record book, I was very bad. So I apologized to my mother, and my mother asked me, don't care about the grade, just ask myself whether I have learned something. And I replied to my mother, say that, yes, I learned something. Because at that time, in first grade, I was able to communicate with my father in the prison by letter. And then occasionally, I also wrote a letter for my neighbors. They have their children out of town and they need to communicate. So I wrote a letter, I read the letter for them too. So I'm very confident at that time that I learned something despite my grade is not outstanding. Probably in the 10s or 20s among my class.
So, how long were you in school in Taiwan?
How long?
Yeah.
Altogether? Okay. 6 years in the primary school, 6 years in in middle school. That means 3 years in junior high, 3 years in high school, and then 4 years in college. I just like to mention to you that I was the only one in my class who went on to become a college student. And also, I was the first one in my village who went to college.
Very impressive.
Well, among the badness, yeah.
Right. So compared to primary school, was middle school different?
Well, when I was in middle school, the my father was released from prison, and my father and parents worked together, support me to school. But when I was in junior high, it was a very trying period of time because every morning I had to leave at about 5 o'clock in the morning and then walk for about 4 miles to get to a train station. And then I get that train station, the train, according to the schedule, would leave at 6:19. So I had to be there before that time for the train, and then take about 1.5 hours, maybe 2 hours, train ride to go to my school, junior high school.
Where was your junior high school?
That's in the central part of Taiwan, the Taichung city. And that was a very trying time because I had to walk so much.
Right.
And I didn't miss any school.
So when you were commuting to your school, what did you do with that time?
Well, while walking, there's nothing I could do, just walk, and I don't have a watch. So I have to walk as fast as I can so that I don't miss the train. And on the train, usually we stood on the train because the younger people were supposed to yield the seat to the elders. So we had to stand about 1.5 hours on the train. And some students, they would read while they were standing. And I could be one of those, but I could not remember now. And sometimes on the train, some elder student, they would grab the sugar cane while the train is moving. They grab the sugar cane, and then we eat the sugar cane because we were hungry all the time.
Mm. Was your junior high school much larger than your primary school then?
Well, yes, it's much larger, yes.
Did you have many friends in junior high school?
Well, not many. Part of that is I commute.
Right.
And I just barely make it to the class. And then after the class, I had to rush back to the train station to get back. So there's hardly any interaction with the other students. And then the students all from very different village. We rarely visit those villages. Actually, never. I never visit other students' home, and none of my classmates with me either.
So did you have any time for play or just any kind of activities you wanted to do outside of school or your responsibilities at home?
Well, because of my long commute time, in Sunday I have to do homework. Okay, at that time, the school is 6 days a week. Only Sunday is off. And so I have to do homework. Even that, I could not complete all the homework. So I was notoriously known for not turning in homework until the third year in junior high that I didn't have to take the train while I take the bus. And then the bus station just a few blocks from my house. And the reason for that is when between my second year and third year in junior high, there was a big flood, and that wiped out the bridge for the train bridge. So I could not commute by the train. So instead, I commute by the bus. And why is that? Because at that time, they would not allow me to buy a bus pass because there's train available. I got to take the train. So that's how it happened. And then when we get to junior, the third year in my junior high, I had time to do the homework because I get back. My commute time was shortened to about 2 to 3 hours a day. And before that, we are talking about 4 or 5 hours a day in commuting.
So, how did you feel about having to spend so much time doing that and not having much time for yourself?
Well, actually, I don't have particular feeling. I just feel that's something I had to do.
Right.
And don't complain. I did not complain. I just do it, even though it's hard. And because of my long commute time, I didn't have time to play around with my cohort in the village. And that, in a way, is good because I spend my time, whatever is available in books, rather than playing with other kids. And also because of my long commute, other kids would not try to convince me to play with them or something like that. So essentially, I was very isolated in retrospect.
So you were isolated.
Yeah, because of my commute time.
Right.
But I didn't feel that way at the time. But it's when I get older, then I say, hey, I was alone when I was a junior high or high school time.
Right. So when you reflect on it now, how do you feel about that?
Well, I feel it's good. You know, when you face challenge, you have to do it. And I don't complain. And at the time, I did not feel that is a challenge. I just feel that is something I have to do. If I want to stay in school, that is something I have to do. There's no other choice because my parents could not afford me to have a rental house, living close to the school. That is not an option. So I did not have any bad feeling about my period of struggling.
Okay. So I want to ask some questions about your father. You said that he was released while you were in junior high?
Just before, between my primary school and junior high.
So what was your relationship like with him?
Well, two things. We never get close. Part of that is I spend my time commuting, and then my father spent time make a living. Essentially, he worked 7 days a week.
Right. So you didn't have much time to spend with him.
Right. Only occasionally, because there's just no time.
Was there ever a time that your whole family would get together?
Well, that's another problem. Usually people get together during the dinner time, but get back to junior high. When I returned home, actually, particularly in the winter time, everybody was sleeping except my mother waiting for me. That's during the winter time because there's no light.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have one light bulb at home, and so you cannot do anything except go to sleep.
Right. So you spent more time then with your mother than your father?
Yeah, well, yes, in that sense, yes.
So after junior high, you went on to high school.
Yeah.
And what did that look like compared to junior high and primary?
Okay, let me get back a little bit in time.
Okay.
When I was in junior high school, third year, I was preparing to take an entrance examination to go to a normal school that is a high equivalent to high school for teacher training, because it's free of any charge, and they also give you some stipends. So that's the only way I perceive that I can go on to make a better living, to
Right.
become a primary school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I graduate from the junior high school, I got a letter from the school saying that I was promoted to junior high school without examination. That means exam for another entrance examination. But to go to the normal school to become a teacher, I had to take an entrance examination, and I had to register for the examination. I need a diploma that says I graduate from junior high, and the school would not give it to me. Essentially, they hold my diploma as a hostage so that I don't go to other school except to stay the same school. Now, my middle school has two divisions, junior high and senior high. The two is in the same school, but you don't automatically get advanced to the senior high school. You have to take an examination. That's the same for all other schools, the same way. And so my school feel that I may take the diploma to register to take an exam to a better school in the city. So they want me to go directly to the senior high school. And so they withhold my diploma, so there's not much I could do. And then my father thought probably I damaged certain property at the school as a result, my father went to school who was willing to pay for the damage that I caused so that I can get the diploma for me to go to register for examination to the normal school to become a teacher. And then my school administrator convinced my father, say, well, this kid got to go to high school and then eventually go to the college. And that's how I get into the senior high school. Otherwise, I could have become a primary school teacher, even though I still have to take an exam to pass an exam to fulfill that dream. So that's how I get to the senior high school.
That was quite the...
Yeah, it's a twist
right.
in my schooling.
Yeah.
Very few would experience that.
Yeah, for sure. So was that frustrating at all, that whole experience?
Well, at that time, actually, I didn't thought about that, and also to say my ignorance, I didn't know high school essentially a stepping stone for going to college.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that. And until from freshman year to junior in high school, one of my elder classmates told me that the purpose for going to high school is to go to the college. And that's a wake-up call. So I start to study hard again. Now, before that, even though I study hard, but I don't care about my grade at all, because that's what happened at the primary school. I start to ignore my grade in the school. And then get to junior high. Actually, I didn't know my performance was good enough to be promoted into the senior high school. I didn't know that. My grade was good enough until I got it later. And that was a surprise. I didn't know I was so good.
Where was the letter from?
Well, I'm in school. From my junior high school.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I didn't know. I think it's about 1,000 or so students among 300 or 400 students that get the exemption to go from junior high school to the senior high school. So it's about 1,000 or so students, and so I was among one of those. That's a surprise.
Yes.
Yeah, because I didn't know my performance was so good. And actually, in the first 2 years, I thought I could be flunked out of school because about 50% of my first year student in junior high, they didn't make it. They just drop out.
I see. So then you moved on to senior high school.
Right. To senior high school. And then in the first year, well, that's part of me because of isolation. I didn't know what is expected for me in the senior high school until somebody told me I got to go to college. So I remember that person forever for telling me that's a destination. So then in the second year in the senior high, I started to work hard again. And then eventually, when we got to go to the college. You got to take an entrance examination. Now, first you have to choose what field you want to get into. One is the science, engineering, and medical school. That's one group. And the other is humanity and social science. And then the third group is biology, that kind of thing. So we had to choose at the third year in senior high, which route we are going to. So I choose the route into science, engineering, and medical school. That's a so-called A group.
So then you had to choose that in senior high school, and then you moved on to college after you graduated.
Yeah, and then to go to college, again, there's a university is also is free, everything free, and you get stipend. But after your graduation, you go to teach the junior high or high school. And that's the way I want to go because my family could not afford me to go to college. And then something happened during the registration for taking the college entrance examination. Then I told myself, if I didn't go to the National Taiwan University, nobody else from my high school in the Group A would be able to go. So I changed my mind. I chose to go to National Taiwan University instead of a teacher training college. And then after the exam, it turned out I was the only one from my high school who got admitted to National Taiwan University in science, engineering, and medical school program. So again, that's by instant, just the last moment I changed my mind. I gave it a try, and then I got admitted.
Wow.
So otherwise, I would become a middle school teacher.
Right.
I think.
That's amazing. That's very lucky that you just had that happen that way.
That's all by instant, nothing I planned.
Right. So what did you go on to do after university?
Well, after university, after graduated from university, I went into a military service. That's mandatory. That's required for all able-bodied college graduate. And so I served 1 year in the Army, and then I stationed in the frontier in Cayman Island. At that time, there's a exchange of canyons. So every other day, they shell each other every other day. So I was in the frontier for several months. So in a sense, I have battlefield experience.
Right. How did you end up coming to the United States?
Well, then at that time, it's some kind of a fashion. Uh, Many college graduate, particularly the graduate from National Taiwan University, would like to go abroad for advanced study. And then I say, hey, I should do that too. So I try.
Right.
And then I got admitted to University of Idaho. They give me full scholarship, so I went there for 2 years to get a master's degree.
And how did you live in the United States now, so how did you end up staying here?
Well, okay, after I finished my master's degree, I went to the University of Southern California.
Right.
And again, that was not a plan. I visited University of California. I visited a professor. I asked him whether he wanted to accept me as a student. And after his consultation with other people, they say they would accept me.
Mm-hmm.
So they accept me before I apply.
Oh.
And so I went to University of Idaho to get my transcript, and then also I got transcript on my college. And so essentially, I enrolled at the USC provisionally, pending on my credential to arrive. So I was a student. They were purely based on what I told them. So then I stayed there. I did well. I finished in 4 years my PhD degree.
That's pretty amazing. It's amazing how much of your life has just gone on very unplanned.
Yes, all my life is unplanned. Yes, because my background would not allow me
Right.
to dream too much. Well, I say dream, actually to plan, because all would be a dream. If I do this, do that, that would be a dream. So I have no capacity to plan what I want to do next. So I finished PhD degree at the USC. Then I went to Woods-Hole Oceanographic Institution, and I stayed there for 1 year as a postdoc.
Mm-hmm.
And then I invite myself to have an interview at the University of California at Riverside. At that time, they were hiring, the university was hiring a geophysicist. So I paid my way to have an interview.
Mm-hmm.
That is not normally people do in the interview. The normal way is you send in your resume, and then the committee, the hiring committee, will evaluate the credibility of the applicants, and then they would invite 4 or 5 people to have an interview. But the reason why I invite myself to come over to Riverside was that my wife at that time was waiting to deliver our first son. and I want to go back to see the birth of our child.
Right.
And so I drove by the Riverside. Essentially, I invite myself to give a talk and about what I can do for the university, etc., typical interview process. And then I would return to Taiwan. I was thought about going back to Taiwan to teach there, but the first time when I get into my alma mater department of geology, I met the chairman at that time. The first person I met was there in the hallway before I could see anybody else. And then he told me that he wanted me to stay in the U.S. for 1 more year before they would consider my application. So I didn't say anything. Then a few days later, I got a call from UC Riverside Department of Earth Sciences chair. He wanted to offer me a job. So I was glad, and so I talked about the job with him over the phone. At that time, I was in Taiwan, and then I decided, well, at least there's one place to want me. So I came to Riverside after that phone conversation.
So you invited yourself to
Interview, yes.
And it totally worked out.
Yes.
That's
yes.
great. That's really great.
Yeah, and unexpected.
Yeah.
But I just tried my luck, and it turned out I did it right. But at the time, I just said, well, perhaps I'll try this and see how my luck will turn out.
Mm-hmm. It turned out great.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
So I stayed at the UC Riverside for 35 years.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing so much about your life with me today.
Yeah.
I just have a few more wrap-up questions.
Sure.
So now you've been living in the United States for a very long time. What is your relationship with Taiwan now?
Well, my relationship is occasionally I return to Taiwan, and then on some occasion I visit my alma mater, give a lecture there, and also at the other university. But I had not done anything since I retired 10 years ago.
I see. So, if you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be, if anything?
Well, just because I never have any plan in my whole life, including I become a professor. That's not part of a plan. So my advice is you got to ask yourself what you can do. You got to plan and then work hard on it. You don't consider the result, what the result will be, but if you work hard on it, you will harvest the fruit sometime down the road. That's what I do, and that's what I told my children. And I have two sons. One is a professor, and the other is a space engineer. So they are doing very well. Actually, doing much better. My science professor, he's a professor and he does a lot better than I in terms of science contribution.
Right.
And then my other science, space engineering, I know very little about him, but because most of his work is so-called secret.
Right.
So I know very little about him.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to tell me?
Well, I just say, work hard and then try different things, build up yourself in good background.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, you don't know what are you going to do when you graduate from the college, because you don't see how the future will change. For example, we talk about the PC. When I was a college student, I didn't know PC, and the PC is very popular. And then iPhone, I just give some of the example. The many things we don't know. So what we need to do as a student is to build a good background. No matter what field you are in, you strengthen your background as possible, so that when you face the new problem, you are not afraid to try it out, face the challenge, and be successful.
Well, thank you so much for the advice, and thank you so much for talking with me today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And if you need any more help, let me know.
Okay, I will. Thank you so much.
Okay. You're welcome. And bye. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.